Shalom. In this Roots and Reflections, we're heading off to Tel Aviv to spend our time concerning the topic of archaeology. And we're going to meet with the archaeologist named Amichai Mazar, who discovered great findings concerning the house of Elisha in Tel Rehov. But before we do that, we have to stop at a press conference in the area of Modi'in to talk about what findings were recently discovered concerning the Maccabees and the Hasmonean period. But first, let us go take a look at some of the projects of Vision for Israel. At this press conference, the Israel Antiquities Authority near the city of Modi'in has announced what they believe could be the mausoleum and the actual tombs of the Maccabees dating back to the Hasmonean period. But not only that, a cross was found embedded into a mosaic floor, which gives us the possible linkage together with the early church Christians that thought this may have been the traditional site of the Maccabees.
2 kilometers from the modern city of Modi'in. In this city, in this settlement, the famous and illustrious Maccabeans lived, fight against the Greek. Here, the Feast of Hanukkah started, and here they were buried in a lavishly decorated mausoleum. This mausoleum is described in details in ancient sources, books, dated 2,000 years ago. You have to use your imagination. Rise this building. Above this pillar, there was a building of 4-5 meters up above. Here stand the sarcophagus. Here they put the dead body. And on the floor of the niche, he finds a mosaic decorated with a cross. The Maccabean were saints among Christianity. The Maccabean were the first martyr, die in the name of belief to protect their belief. Because of that, there is a place of honor, of dignity to the Maccabean in Christianity.
Basically, we're staying on a site. It's called the Hagardi Ruins, in Hebrew, Churvat Hagardi, which scholars have been identifying as a very strong candidate as the real tombs of the Maccabees. The same Maccabees the Jewish people celebrate in the holiday of Hanukkah, and the same Maccabees that the Catholic Bible and the Greek Orthodox Bible preserved as part of its canon. These are the people that established a rebellion against the Greeks and established an independent Jewish state over 2,000 years ago. And we have to understand maybe the Christian Byzantines sanctified an original site from the Hellenistic period, meaning Second Temple, meaning it could have been Maccabees, and they chose to come here and express their own heritage through it, because both heritages of Jewish and Christian connected at this focal point. We've done a lot of work, but there's still work to be done here to complete the site. So we came here for an entire month, and yeah, this is the first time that archaeologists come here and work with a scientific method to this level. This area does have a Hasmonean archaeology, so this is all the circumstantial evidence goes towards that direction, but we have to stick to the scientific system to understand it perfectly.
As a resident of the area, I was a volunteer as a part of a big, great team, hardcore teams that came here to work and to support the the other people, the other scientists who were working here. And we were digging from sunrise to sunset.
Wow.
Every day, trying to find some evidence, trying to some clues, and to overcome the real puzzle. This is the real Maccabean tomb, and we believe that it is the Maccabean tomb. Yeah.
Just a couple decades ago, Modi'in as a modern city didn't exist, but it has been rebuilt and is continuing to build. This is the area where the Maccabean family grew up and lived and fought against the Syrian Greeks. And it mentions in 1 Maccabees chapter 2, verse 27, "Then Mattathias cried out in the city with a loud voice, saying, 'Let everyone who is zealous for the Torah and supports the covenant come out with me.' And he and his sons fled to the hills, and they left all that they had in the city of Modi'in." Well, that was such an exciting press conference on archaeology. So I've worked up quite an appetite, and it's time to have a late morning breakfast. Where can we go in the area of Modi'in? I know a place where we can have Aruchat Boker, our word of the week, breakfast, Aruchat Boker. So we've come to Michalis in the area of Modi'in, where they have plenty of breakfast and organic breads. Look at these. For Aruchat Boker, wonderful organic breads. Let's have a seat. I am hungry. Hungry for me and hungry for you. Aruchat Boker, breakfast. Shalom. Hi. So, I hear you have great organic food and wonderful breakfasts, and so I just want to get your best breakfasts.
Okay.
Well, what's coming? Wow, look at this apple juice. Look at that.
Joey?
Well, I'm going to take a guess. We have some type of white cheese, avocado, some olives, some sauce of something, tuna fish, and a little bit for the palate. Yogurt, natural yogurt with granola. Fantastic. Aruchat Boker in Israel, breakfast. There's nothing like it anywhere else in the world. Freshly squeezed apple juice. love a good omelet in the morning. One for me. And one for you.
Every year in Jerusalem. Come up, join your host Barry Segal and Vision for Israel for the annual Sukkot celebration and conference in accordance with the prophet Zechariah's vision for the latter days, that the nation shall go up from year to year to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, and to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. Contact the numbers, email us, or look at the website. Sign up now. Join Barry and Batya in Jerusalem for the Sukkot celebration, featuring well-known Bible teachers, ministries, dance, and worship teams, and participate in the traditional Jerusalem march through the streets of the city of the great King. Rejoice with us at the Sukkot celebration.
Driving through Modi'in, we're on our way to Tel Aviv. Yahoo! In another episode of Roots and Reflections, we have visited the site of Tel Rehov, the possible site of the house of Elisha. We've come to Ramat Aviv, to the Eretz Israel Museum, to interview the archaeologist and the excavator of that site. Professor Mazar, we're here at a great exhibition concerning the connection of a find of the house of Elisha, and also it's known as Devash Melachim, the honey of the kings. Where did that name come from?
Because we are dealing here with honey, with apiary, with beekeeping, the only place in the world where an apiary was discovered in archaeology, and also with kings, because you know this place was important in the period of the monarchy, of the Israelite monarchy. And I believe that one of the kings of Israel, important king, the founder of the new dynasty, Jehu, came from this city, because we found the name of his family, Nimshi, twice in 2 inscriptions, and the third time in a nearby site, one of the small villages near Rehov. So I think that this family, Nimshi, lived in this city. The center of this family was in this city. And probably Jehu, the king, the new king, came out from this town. We cannot prove it, but it's an assumption.
When did you first discover the site, and what led you to this area particularly?
Well, I excavated in the Bet She'an Valley since 1989. I excavated for 9 years the mound of Bet She'an, you know, very famous.
Which we all know and love so much.
Everybody knows it and so on. But during this excavation, I conducted some surveys in the valley, and I studied the other sites in the valley. And I realized that this site, called in Arabic Tel Es-Sarem or Tel Rehov, is known since the beginning of the 20th century, was identified, was described, but was never excavated. And in the surveys, we realized that it is more than twice in large than Bet She'an, that it is indeed the largest mound in the valley of Bet She'an and one of the largest mounds in Israel. It's a 10 hectares site, which is, say, like Megiddo, one of the major mounds in the Iron Age in Israel. So we decided in 1996 to end our excavations at Bet She'an. We accomplished our task there, and we started this new excavation, which lasted for 12 years.
Incredible. So what you're saying is this mound actually has much more to be uncovered in future years if...
No question. When you have a site like this with about 20 meters accumulation of human debris from many periods, 10 hectares in area, you cannot excavate all of it, of course. What we excavated, even in the last period, the main period that we excavated, the 10th and 9th centuries BC, we excavated less than 2% of the area of the site.
There was a discovery of these beehives, and as I understood it, this is the only discovery of such an intact beehive as it was then?
Yeah. You know, in Britain, very famous is Eva Crane. She was the founder of modern research of beekeeping. She wrote a basic book on this, and she passed away just a year after we discovered these beehives in 2005. We discovered the first beehives, and in 2007 we uncovered the entire apiary with more than 30 hives. These are the charred honeycombs. And in those honeycombs we found remains of bees, actual bees.
Wow.
which were photographed. You see the photographs here. These were done in electron microscope, and you can see parts of the bees, the wings, muscles, the eyes, etc.
That's amazing.
And we were able to identify, scholars identified what kind, subspecies of bee we are dealing with. And they discovered this is a bee which is not local to Israel. It is the Anatolian bee. It came from Turkey. So it's very unusual and very interesting question.
Something that possibly was brought or actually...
We think that they brought the swarms, but it's a big problem how they did it and so on, because it's about 500-600 kilometers away. In archaeology, we know beekeeping mainly from Egyptian wall paintings and wall reliefs from the 3rd millennium and 2nd millennium and 1st millennium BC. We know it from several texts from Egypt, from the Hittite Empire, from Mesopotamia, but no one excavated an apiary. Even in the Roman, Hellenistic and Roman, Greek, Hellenistic and Roman world, we know about hives, pottery vessels that were used as hives, but no apiary was found as this one, industrial in nature, well planned, well organized. So this is an exciting discovery.
So did the beehives come first or the house, or at the same time?
What do you mean?
The house in terms of where the plaque of Elisha...
No, the Elisha plaque was found one level later than the level of the beehives. When we excavate from top to bottom, we count the numbers of strata, cities that were destroyed and rebuilt. So the beehives are in stratum 5 and the Elisha building is in stratum 4. There is a difference of about, I would say, about half a century between them. We don't know exactly, but I estimate around half a century, maybe less.
Now, what did you find in the house itself, and why the connection with Elisha?
Well, the Elisha house is an interesting, outstanding building in terms of its architecture. Its plan is unique. We don't have houses like this in Israel with 2 wings. Each one of them has an opening. Each opening leads into an entrance chamber. The entrance chamber leads into a hall. In the hall there are benches to sit on and so on. There are various installations. And then there is an entrance from both wings into back rooms, which are connected between them. That means if you want to move from one wing to the other, you have to do it through the inner room. And the inner room thus has 2 entrances. Near each one of those entrances we found an altar, which we can see in this exhibition. Altar made of pottery with 4 horns, very nicely worked. Inside this room we found this inscription in red ink on pottery sherd, which we read Elisha. The reading is not safe, by the way, it's broken, but at least I think most epigraphists who saw it believe that our reading is correct, that it provides the name Elisha, the biblical name Elisha.
So this is the plaque
This is the
itself.
Elisha inscription. You see the red ink, and you can see Lamed, Yud, Shin, Ain, probably, Elisha. Of course, the question is whether this Elisha is the Elisha which is known from the Bible. We cannot be sure about that. We suggest it, but very, very carefully, because we cannot say it for sure.
This here is the grain bin that was found,
Yeah,
correct?
all these finds are from the Elisha building. It's called building CP. You can see the plan of the building here on the wall. And this is, again, a unique. We don't have anything like it. It's a bin. We found it full of charred grain. You can still see the evidence for fire inside. And it was reconstructed here in the museum. We found 2 of them. So we don't have anything like it anywhere else, yes.
It's so intact, actually.
Yeah. And these are the two altars.
And the fire confirms the carbon data with the bees themselves, the same time period?
A little bit later. The apiary is a little bit earlier, as I said, about half a century earlier. Yeah, you can see these 2 pottery altars. We don't know what was put on top of them or fired on top of them, perhaps incense, perhaps even small animals like pigeons or whatever, perhaps just loaves of bread, but they are definitely used for offering in a ritual in this building. And they were found next to the 2 entrances to this room where we found the Elisha inscription.
So it would be very common, would it not be, that in the days of Elisha, that somebody would bring him an offering, in a sense, for being the holy man or the servant of
That's
God?
what I believe, but it's very hard to say for sure. So in terms of date, the building was destroyed in heavy conflagration, very heavy fire. And we can date this fire by sending grain, charred grain that we found in the house and adjacent houses to radiocarbon dating. And the dates that we get are in the 9th century, more or less ending around 840, 830 BC, which is more or less corresponding with the early period of Elisha activity in the kingdom of Israel. We know that he was active for about 40 years or so. He was born not far from Tel Rehov in a place called Abel Mechola, which is about 10 kilometers away south of Tel Rehov. So in terms of date, it fits. In terms of geography, it fits. And I think it fits also from another point of view. Elisha in the Bible is mentioned as the one who initiated. He sent one of his companions, Bnei HaNevi'im, the sons of the prophet, to anoint Jehu as the new king. And as I said, Jehu perhaps was born in Tel Rehov because we have the name of the family, Nimshi, here in this city. So putting all this together and taking into consideration all this cultic activity and the ceremonial activity and the evidence for feasts and a lot of dining and public dining in this particular building, the plan, the very unique design of the plan of this building. So I came to this suggestion that perhaps this particular building served the particular Elisha who is known as, to us from the Bible in these particular years around the 1930s, 40s of the 9th century BC.
A question I have, because you mentioned the word benches, so that almost gives me an idea that it was a place of study, like a yeshiva.
Well, I'm not sure about that because the building is full of artifacts. It's unbelievable in this rather small building. It's not a public, it's not a monumental building, it's a rather simple building. But in this particular building we found almost 260 pottery vessels, cooking pot, big jars, serving jars and so on the benches. I don't think that it was a study building. I think that maybe we have to compare it to a kind of a pilgrimage area and feasting. I compare it more to the activity that we know these days, in our own days, in Israel, in a place like Netivot. Mm-hmm. There is a holy man. Mm-hmm. Elisha was a holy man after all. This is a kind of archetype of a holy man. People perhaps came to visit him, to see him, to get his blessings. And then they were dining together. What we have are the artifacts. The artifacts are interesting. They are very unusual. And here in Tel Rehov, we have about 5 jars, you can see them in the exhibition, with inscriptions on them. This is daily use of writing, of script during this period. So we may say that writing was much more popular than we thought in this particular period, though still we have only a few inscriptions from this period, from the 10th and 9th centuries BC.
One of the inscriptions found was the name Nimshi on it.
2 inscriptions with the name Nimshi. We have one jar with the name Nimshi found in the apiary, just next to the apiary, or inside the apiary, in fact, among the hives. And the second one was found in the later period, just next to the Elisha building, in another building, very rich in finds. We have this inscription mentioning belonging or le Shakai Nimshi. Shakai is probably from the root Shakya, that means a kind of maybe high official in charge of the official drinks. It's a kind of a title that is known from this period. So probably he was a kind of a high official coming from this family, Nimshi.
When a site is being considered to be preserved, in any archaeological find or such as here in Israel, What are the ingredients that makes for a site being desirable to preserve, to build, and what makes this site a challenge?
Yeah. Preservation of archaeological sites is it's a big challenge. When you have large stone structures, massive stone structures, mainly in Roman cities, you know, Byzantine sites, Crusader fortresses, it's not a big deal. You can conserve the stone architecture quite well. But when you are dealing with the mounds of biblical period, when there are many various phases, one on top of the other, each phase is preserved poorly, maybe less than 1 foot high, and the building construction materials were very poor, mainly mud brick, very poor plaster and so on. The foundations are either nothing or just wood, as we have in Tel Rehov, or just field stones, as we have in other sites. It's very, very difficult to preserve and conserve. In fact, in most places, the best solution is just to back cover the excavation. There are few sites in Israel which are part of the network of the National Parks and Archaeological Sites Authority who took care to preserve places like Hatzor, Dan, Megiddo. Now they are working on Lachish, Beersheba, Arad. So we have about 5 or 6 places. Some of them are, by the way, World Heritage, UNESCO World Heritage sites. So in these sites, the authorities really invest a lot of money and efforts, and those sites are protected, there are guards. But places like Tel Rehov, it's much more difficult because they are not part of this network of national sites. They are not protected, they are not guarded, and the architecture is very, very loose. It's mud brick architecture, and mud brick walls are falling apart.
On my way back from Tel Aviv, I have stopped here in Modi'in. Whether or not it's past history through archaeological finds or present building, God promises through His Word to rebuild and restore the ancient ruins of Israel.